My daughter told me I ruined her childhood. She said it from the passenger seat of a car that I paid for, on her way back to a college that I funded, wearing clothes that I bought, with a stomach full of food that I put on the table. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Dad, you were never there. You were always working. You were emotionally unavailable. You just didn't care enough to be present." If you are a father watching this, if you are a man who spent the last 40 years waking up in the dark, breaking your back in the cold, swallowing your pride, and grinding your bones to dust just to keep a roof over your family's head, I know exactly how that sentence feels. It doesn't feel like a slap in the face. It feels like a knife slipping between your ribs. We live in a modern world that loves to talk about emotional availability. They sit in expensive therapy sessions, paid for by the sweat of our brows, and they psychoanalyze the men who kept them alive. They call us distant. They call us cold. They call us toxic. But what they don't understand, what they will never ever understand, is the terrible silent burden of the provider. Today, I'm not here to apologize, and I'm not here to ask for pity. I am here to tell you the brutal truth about what it actually takes to be the shield for a family, and why, at the end of the day, the shield is the only thing that gets left outside in the rain. Let me take you back to 1982. I was 26 years old. I had a wife, a newborn baby, and exactly $42 in my checking account. I grew up with nothing. I grew up in a house where the power got shut off in the winter. I grew up knowing what it feels like to go to sleep with an empty stomach, listening to your mother cry in the other room because she couldn't afford a gallon of milk. When I held my daughter for the first time, I made a silent vow to God. I swore that my child would never know the cold. I swore she would never know the humiliation of wearing taped-up shoes to school. I swore she would never know hunger. But keeping that vow had a price, and the price was my life. I didn't have a fancy degree. I couldn't work from a laptop in a coffee shop. I worked construction. I worked the graveyard shift at the plant. I worked 60, 70, sometimes 80 hours a week. I missed school plays. I missed baseball games. I missed family dinners. Not because I wanted to. Do you think I wanted to be freezing on a roof in December instead of sitting by the fireplace with my kid? I was the coal in the furnace. I was burning myself alive to keep the house warm. But the funny thing about the furnace is, nobody sitting in the living room ever thinks about the fire burning in the basement. They just enjoy the heat. And then, years later, they complain that you weren't sitting on the couch next to them. You cannot explain the biting cold of poverty to someone who has never felt the wind. You cannot explain the terror of a foreclosure notice to a child who only knows a safe, warm bedroom. For decades, I swallowed my exhaustion. I took the extra shifts. I let my own dreams die so theirs could live. My knees are shot. My lower back is a constant grinding agony. I have calluses on my hands that feel like stone. I traded my physical body for their comfort. And what was the reward? What was the grand prize at the end of this marathon? The reward was becoming the villain in their story. When my kids grew up and hit the real world, they didn't look back with gratitude. They looked back through the lens of modern psychology. They didn't see a father who sacrificed his youth to shield them from the brutal reality of the world. They saw a man who was too tired to play catch. My wife, she started echoing the same script. "You were always married to your job, Frank. You never made us feel special." They bonded over my absence. They formed a little club where the entry fee was blaming the man who paid the dues. The day my daughter told me I ruined her childhood, I didn't yell. I didn't defend myself. I just looked at her. I looked at her expensive coat, her pristine teeth that cost me $8,000 in orthodontist bills, her safe, secure life. And I realized something profound. I realized that my sacrifice was so complete, so absolute, that I had successfully raised a child who had the luxury of complaining about her feelings because she never once had to worry about her survival. My absence wasn't a lack of love. My absence was the love. It was the heaviest, most agonizing form of love a man can give. If you are carrying this pain right now, if you are lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering why the people you bled for look at you like a stranger, listen to me. You have to forgive yourself for not being a modern superhero. You couldn't be the shark hunting for food and the teddy bear sitting in the nursery at the exact same time. Stop apologizing for keeping the lights on. Stop letting them make you feel guilty for the calluses on your hands. Yes, you missed things. Yes, maybe you were too exhausted to smile when you walked through the door at 9 p.m. But you did your job. You stood between your family and the wolves. You took the hits. You bore the weight. Let them sit in their comfortable houses and call you distant. Let them talk to their therapists about how you didn't validate their feelings enough. Let them cast you as the villain. Because deep down, in the quiet moments of the night, you know the truth. You know that if you hadn't done what you did, if you hadn't made those brutal choices, they wouldn't even have the luxury of sitting in a therapist's chair to complain about you. You bought them that privilege with your blood. You cannot force gratitude out of people who have never had to struggle. So what do you do now? You find your own peace. You look at your hands, you look at the scars, and you wear them like medals. You stop waiting for a thank you that is never going to come. You step back, you let them live the lives you built for them, and you start living for yourself. You buy that boat you always wanted. You take that trip. You sit in the quiet and you finally rest your tired bones. If you are a man who broke his back for an ungrateful world, if you are tired of apologizing for being the shield, I want you to go down to the comments right now. I want you to type 3 words. A badge of honor for the men who did what had to be done. I kept them safe. Type it. Claim your sacrifice. Walk tall, brother. You did your job. Let the rest of the world figure it out for themselves. I'll see you in the next one.